Welcome to another fast and fun video. It's Rich here, and in this week's video it's a bit of home DIY. This video I'm going to take you through the changing of the front brake pads and discs on my Renault Sport Megane 250 Cup. So just some of the things that you need for this job, pretty standard stuff. Trolley jack, axle stands for lifting the vehicle, some pretty standard tools, test some pliers, etc. Wrench, hammer, and then I've got some disc cleaner, because normal when discs come they are treated with some sort of oils, lubricants to preserve the discs while they're in storage. So I've got a tin of brake cleaner, I've got copper grease, which you obviously need to put on the back of the pads, etc. Brakes I've gone for are these PBS, Performance Brake Solutions. This is a sort of it's going to be track and road going car, so I needed to make sure they can do both. And these are the beauties here. Got these from Cam Racing for about, I think they're about 180, 190 for Cam Racing. And then the discs, I've gone with Brembo, but not groove like's on there. I've been told actually it's better just to go for standard plain discs. So that's what I've done. These are just the plain standard Brembos. So yeah, first job is we need to get the car jacked up, and also with the bonnet down here, brake reservoir, just take the cap off that, so once we get access to the pads we can push back, leave that there, we can push back on the pads, and it just allows the brake fluid there to come up just for. So let's have a look at what we're looking at here. Just before we go down to the brake area, just up here, just worth putting a rag over the top of the brake fluid reservoir, and that's because my pads they've got nothing left, so they're going to be so low, and these are brand new pads we're putting in discs, therefore the pistons are going to have to move quite a long way, and in case the brake fluid comes over the top, I've put a rag there to capture anything. It's about 10-15mm from the top, so I've left that there just in case. And then Brembos are actually quite straightforward, to tell you the truth. There's not a lot to them. If you look round this side, here we've got the two pins. So this pin here and this lower pin. These have got to come out, held on by this spring is putting sort of tension on there. So I'll show you how best to do that. Tap these through, spring comes out, and then the pads should pretty much straightforwardly come out. We've then got the two big bolts here, Allen key bolts, to come off to remove the caliper, and then for the disc itself, that's just held on by these two small little grub screws there. So it's relatively straightforward. The only problem is quite often some of these bolts and pins and stuff are quite difficult to get out, so we'll see how we get on with it. Here we go. So with these pins, sometimes if you're very careful, you can just put a little bit of WD-40 on them if you want, just to try to free it up a little bit. Another good tip as well, if you can take pressure off the spring here, it takes some of the pressure off the actual pin. There, can you see me moving that spring there? You can jam a screwdriver on there, just take some of the pressure on this pin. But we'll see how we go, and I'll put it on time lapse. But it's just about getting these two pins out first, and then the spring comes off, and hopefully then the pads should come out. But before you take the pads out, we're going to do something else with regard to the pistons. But let's get these two pins out first. Well, I have to say, those pins came out 10 times easier than I thought. Now, the next thing you do before these pads come out, and to make it easy to get the pads out, But most importantly, as you can see, my pads have got, there's literally no pad left on these. So the backing plate of the pad's almost on the disc itself. So what I'm going to do now is get a couple of screwdrivers in here and just open up and push back on the pistons. So using the old disc and the old pads, I need to get these pistons moved right back. Don't forget, when I put the new disc and new pads on here, they're going to be starting right in the back position. So it's better to do it with it when with the old stuff still in here. Hopefully those pistons are out enough, and now the pads will just come straight out. Should do. One has. Look at the state of those. So here, just look at these. These are the pads that I've just taken out. Look at those. I mean, good tip is don't leave them that thin. There's literally a slither. The whole pad is just disintegrated. So absolutely need doing. Right, quick tip here. Let's just show you what you need to do next. So there's two jobs left to do now. One is to undo these, and these are going to be flipping on hard and strong. I think it's 12mm these are, Allen key attachments, so going to need a big sort of bar to get those off, probably to get them off. But then when the caliper then will be free then to come off. But I suggest you get some string or something up here off one of your springs, and just to hold the caliper, so it's not hanging on the brake line. But before you want to take the caliper off, a good tip is the disc held on by these two little grub screws. To break the seal can be quite difficult, because what happens if the caliper's off is that the disc can just rotate when you're trying to undo it. So a good tip is get a screwdriver, drop it in the air vent at the top, rotate the disc round until it jams itself here, and then the disc isn't going to rotate, and you can break the seals here. So undo those, break the seals so the disc is loose before you go and take off your two main caliper bolts. Right, so pads and disc all off. Quick time for coffee break. Spend just a little bit of time cleaning it, preparing it to make sure it's right first. Is really important when you come back to reassembly. So coffee break, and then we'll start the reassembly. So when you start reassembling, one of the things you've got to do is get rid of all this. So you need to get this really clean and tidy, because this is what the disc is going to mate to. So it's really important you get a really, really good fit here. So first of all, just get rid of all the crap first, on here. And you've got to try to get this as smooth as you can. And I'm going to use a combination of wire brush and sandpaper and a bit of WD-40 as well to get this surface nicely mated. where you can take that, just run your finger over it and it should be really nice and smooth. And that's what you're after. So that looks pretty good to me. So that's it ready to receive the disc. What we now need to do is go and prepare the disc and degrease the disc. Important here is to make sure you get a clean cloth. Okay, so don't get one that's been contaminated with anything. And they're the screws that obviously I'll need. So I'll put them over there. And then keeping your hands off the surface as much as possible, just going to give them a really good weight cleaner. So if there's anything on there, it will hopefully take it away. And on this side. There's my dog just barking at somebody, which I'll have to go and stop in a minute. So that's it. So that's the disc. Pretty good. I will give it another clean, but that's just the first bit I do. And now carry it across, and we'll take it a look at mating it up with the car. I just put a very, very small amount of copper grease on here, on this mating surface. Not very much at all. I don't think there's ever need to use much copper grease anyway. Before we put the bolts for the caliper in, again, I just take a wire brush here, just give it a quick wire brush, just clean them up as best I can before I put them in. With the pads, put a little bit of copper grease on the pads. But again, not very much. So after much effort, eventually that pad's gone in. Just going to now put on the two pins that need to go back in, and obviously the spring. Just going to put a light coat of copper grease on each. Just a little light tap with the end of the, if you can keep the pressure on the pads, and then that's it. Just double check that one. That's it. Spring, nice bit of pressure there, and that is them done. So, there we go. That's all back in. Okay, They're done. These are torqued. 40 newton meters, 160 newton meters. Both pins are in, the spring's in. That's all good. I need to pull off that bit of string. There, that's a string gone. Right, what I'm going to do is get a clean bit of rag and just clean the disc one final time, and then we just need to prepare to put the wheel back on. On the inside of the wheel here, this way you can get some corrosion, so give it a wire brush here to make sure it's going to get a nice seating onto the disc. It's not bad, this, actually. I think it was only done a couple of months ago, so that's not bad at all. What I will do is just put a little bit of copper grease on there. Again, my tip with copper grease is you never need very much of it. So, less is more with this sort of stuff, I always think. And just really, almost you can't see it. Some people do, some people don't, I don't know, but there you go. That's it. All that's ready for putting straight back on now. And then simply put the wheel back on, and then there's one final job to finish off. So that's it, the wheels are all on. Last thing to do now is just pump the brake pedal. I'm just going to lean across and do it with my hand. You don't need the engine on for this. And what that does, that pushes all the brake fluid, pushes the pads onto the disc now, and so we should have it spot on there. Final thing to do is brake fluid reservoir. It is right near the top now. I mean, that's obviously because it's come up slightly, because obviously we've got full pads in now. So put the cap back on. And that's it. Clearly you do obviously both sides, cap back on now. All good. Then you've got to brake the pads in. These PBS instructions there are, I think it's 10, 90 to 50 mile an hour braking. Now obviously legally you can't do that on the road, so I'll have to come up with some sort of probably 60 or 70 braking down to probably 30 and repeat that 10 times so it's legally you can do it on the road, and then leave the pads then to cool, and that should be your pads broken. That's it. Easy enough. It took me about an hour and a half both sides. Do the same, and it'll save you probably 2 or 3 hours worth of garage time, and it's a job that really most, I think, people can do. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give me a thumbs up, please subscribe and stay tuned. There'll be another video coming up really soon.